The smartphone story begins long before the modern device in your pocket. It begins with earlier mobile phones and with the first widely recognized smartphone precursor, the IBM Simon Personal Communicator, announced on November 2nd, 1993 and released on August 16th, 1994. It combined phone calling with PDA-style features, including email, fax, notes, and a touchscreen, and is widely credited as the first smartphone even though the term came later. The term smartphone is often linked to Ericsson's GS88 or Penelope concept in 1997, where smartphone was used in connection with a prototype that never reached the market. Some sources also note that the phrase smartphone appeared in the press earlier in different forms, so the naming history is not completely settled. The first handheld mobile phone call was made on April 3, 1973, by Marty Cooper of Motorola in New York City. In December 1992, Neil Papworth sent the first SMS message, "Merry Christmas." That was an early sign that the phone was becoming more than a voice device. In November 1993, IBM introduced the Simon. It could make calls and handle email, fax, notes, and touchscreen input. It sold about 50,000 units over roughly 6 months. At launch, it cost $899 with a 2-year service contract or $1,099 without a contract. Later, the price was reduced to $599 with a 2-year contract. Its battery life was reportedly about 1 hour. The naming history around smartphones is less straightforward. The term is often tied to Ericsson's GS88 or Penelope concept in 1997, where smartphone was used for a prototype that never reached market. Some sources indicate earlier forms of the phrase appeared in the press, so there is no single clean origin. Apple changed the category on January 9, 2007, when Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone at Macworld in San Francisco. He said, "Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone." Apple's own announcement described the iPhone as a revolutionary and magical product and said it was literally 5 years ahead of any other mobile phone. The original iPhone launched in the United States on June 29, 2007. It did not launch as a fully formed app platform. That came later on July 10, 2008, when Apple launched the App Store with 500 third-party apps. In its first 72 hours, the App Store reached 10 million downloads. Android followed soon after. The HTC Dream, also known as the T-Mobile G1, is often cited as the first Android smartphone, launched in 2008. In 2009, Samsung released its first Galaxy phone. Apple defined the modern touchscreen phone. Android made the category scale across manufacturers. By 2024, global smartphone shipments reached 1.22 billion units, up 7% year over year. In the fourth quarter of 2024, shipments hit 330 million units, up 3% year over year. There were about 4.88 billion smartphone users worldwide in 2024, roughly 60.42% of the global population. There were also about 7.21 billion smartphones in use globally. Android held about 70% of the global smartphone operating system market, while iOS held about 29%. The smartphone changed daily life by absorbing functions that used to belong to separate devices. It took over music players, point-and-shoot cameras, maps, calculators, and handheld game consoles for most users. It also made the internet portable and constant. The device in your pocket is not just a smaller computer. It is a computer designed to follow your life around all day. There is also a trade-off built into that convenience. Every app wants attention. Every service wants data. Every update pushes users deeper into systems they do not fully control. That is not a side effect. It is the business model. IBM Simon mattered because it proved the concept. It showed that a phone could also be a pocket computer, a communication hub, and a digital assistant. It was expensive, clunky, and limited, but it established the basic idea. The history of the smartphone is the history of that idea being refined over time, Mobile phones cut the cord. Texting changed how people use them. IBM tried to combine a phone and a computer. Apple turned the phone into a touch-first product. The App Store turned it into a platform. Android made it universal. By 2024, the category had become one of the largest consumer technology markets in the world. It began with a brick that could barely make a call. It ended with a supercomputer in your pocket. The smartphone market is still very active in 2026, with Apple and Samsung continuing to trade places at the top, depending on the quarter and the source. Counterpoint's global smartphone share data says Samsung led in Q3 2025 with a 19% share, while IDC and Reuters reported Apple leading the market in 2025 with roughly 20% share overall. Global smartphone shipments reached 1.26 billion units in 2025 in one IDC-based report, while another Omdia report put 2025 shipments at 1.25 billion units. Counterpoint also reported that 2025 shipments rose 2% year over year, and Reuters summarized the same trend while noting Apple at 20% share and Samsung at 19%. Smartphone ownership remains near universal in many markets. Data Reportal's Digital 2025 report said 5.78 billion people use a mobile phone, and smartphones make up almost 87% of mobile handsets in use worldwide. Backlinko's 2026 stats page estimated 4.69 billion smartphone owners in 2025.